Janitor Jian, clear table 3 quickly. Wipe off the grease. Guests are waiting to sit. Coming. I put down the mop, grabbed the damp rag, and walked over. Wearing a cheap white t-shirt and faded jeans, I looked completely unremarkable in this loud, greasy, smoke-filled employee cafeteria. Today was June 12th. It was the 6th day since I had been sent down to do odd jobs in the group cafeteria. The cafeteria supervisor, a fat woman named Wendy Wang, stood with her hands on her hips, watching me like she was afraid I might slack off. Move faster. A grown man dragging his feet like an old woman. Her sharp voice instantly drew the attention of several tables nearby. I said nothing. I only moved faster, dumped the leftovers into the recycling bin, and carefully wiped the tabletop. Suppressed laughter came from around me. Isn't that engineer Jian from RD? Why is he clearing dishes here? You're behind on the news. I heard he offended President Fang, the new executive sent down from headquarters, and got stripped of his position. President Fang? Felix Fang? The young genius who raised our subsidiary's performance by 3 points in 1 month? Exactly. I heard engineer Jian relied on being an old employee and talked back during the project meeting. Now look. His iron rice bowl turned into porcelain. Touch it once and it shatters. Keep your voice down. He'll hear you. So what if he hears? He clears plates now. What can he do? I wiped the table until it shone, as if I had heard nothing. My name was Lawrence Jian. I was 48 years old. In everyone else's eyes, I was an unlucky old man who had worked hard for half a lifetime, then lost his mind near retirement, offended the new favorite, and got exiled to the cafeteria. I silently pushed the dish cart toward the next table that needed cleaning. The wheels rolled with a monotonous rumble through the noisy cafeteria. Just then, a small commotion rose at the entrance. The place that had been bustling seemed to fall quiet for an instant. I raised my head and followed everyone's gaze. A man and a woman walked in side by side. The man was handsome and tall, wearing a custom suit. The Patek Philippe on his wrist reflected cold, expensive light. The woman was gentle and beautiful, wearing the latest Chanel dress. She held his arm, a proper smile on her face. The man was Felix Fang, the newly appointed president of the subsidiary. And the woman was my wife, Megan Meng. Supervisor Wang rushed over immediately, her face piled with flattery. President Fang, Miss Meng, what brings you two here? Inspecting work? Felix's gaze swept around the cafeteria as if looking for something. Finally, his eyes landed on me. The corner of his mouth curved into a playful smile. Megan followed his gaze. When she saw me in dirty work clothes, pushing a greasy cart, the smile on her face stiffened for a moment. Then a perfectly measured look of surprise and pity appeared. Lawrence? Why are you here? Her voice was not loud, but enough for everyone nearby to hear. I did not answer. I only looked at her. Looked at her standing beside Felix, beautiful and matching, like a perfect couple. And I looked like an awkward clown. Felix wrapped an arm around Megan's waist and slowly walked toward me. His leather shoes stepped on the slightly wet floor, making dull sounds. Megan, don't look so surprised. I just wanted Master Jian to change his environment and experience the hardships of grassroots employees. It will help his future work too. His voice was gentle. But the words were full of condescending arrogance. He called me Master Jian. Not Engineer Jian. Not even Megan's husband. Megan lightly punched his chest, her tone carrying a hint of coquettishness. Oh, stop joking. Lawrence is already older. How can he handle this kind of hardship? Then she turned to me, eyes full of pity. Lawrence, don't blame Felix. He's doing this for the company. But don't worry. I already talked to him. I told him not to make things difficult for you. Around us, some employees lowered their heads and pretended to eat. Others pricked up their ears, enjoying the show. A demoted husband. A rising lover. A wife mediating between them. Classic. And ironic. Supervisor Wang was an expert at reading the room. She immediately brought 2 clean chairs over. President Fang, Miss Meng, please sit. Please sit. Felix sat down with grandeur, crossing his legs as he looked at me with interest. Master Jian, are you getting used to working here? I pushed the cart aside, picked up the rag, and began wiping the table in front of him, even though it was already clean. It's fine. My voice was calm. Megan seemed unable to bear it. She took a pack of tissues from her Hermes bag and tried to hand it to me. "Lawrence, wipe your sweat." I did not take it. I only looked at her lightly. Her hand froze awkwardly in midair. Felix chuckled and pulled her hand back, holding it in his palm and playing with her fingers. "Megan, you are too kind. Some people don't know their place unless they suffer a little." He paused and turned his gaze toward me, his expression like someone giving charity. "But since Megan pleaded for you, I can't be too heartless as president." He leaned back in his chair and said slowly, "How about this, Master Jian? Hold on here for 2 more days. After the weekend, on Monday, I'll speak to HR and move you back to your old post." His words sounded like he was granting me a heavenly blessing. Megan's face immediately lit up. "Really? Felix, you're so good." She turned to me, her tone filled with eager credit-taking. "Lawrence, did you hear that? President Fong agreed to let you return. Hurry and thank President Fong." The air seemed to freeze. Every gaze focused on me. Waiting for me to lower my head. Waiting for me to show gratitude. Supervisor Wong desperately signaled at me, silently mouthing, "Thank him." I straightened my back and threw the dirty rag into the bucket behind me. Thud. I looked at Megan. Looked at that well-maintained face, now filled with victory. Then I slowly shook my head. "No need." My voice was not loud. But in that instant of silence, it was extremely clear. The smile froze on Megan's face. "Lawrence, what did you say?" Felix frowned too. Clearly, he had not expected this reaction. I looked at them and repeated, word by word, I said, "No need." I took out my phone. It was an old Huawei I had used for years, its screen cracked in several places. In front of them, I dialed a number. The call connected quickly. A cold, capable female voice came through. "Sir." "Evelyn," I said calmly. "Activate the hibernation plan. Within 30 minutes, I want results." Evelyn Chi did not hesitate. "Yes, sir." I hung up and put the phone back into my pocket. Then I raised my eyes and met Felix and Megan's suspicious stares. "I have withdrawn the 29 billion in assets under my name. Starting today, this company and everything you rely on will cease to exist." The entire cafeteria fell into dead silence. If the previous silence was frozen air, this was a vacuum. Everyone seemed to have been paused. People holding bowls, picking up food, chatting all remained in their original postures, motionless. Megan's face went from confusion to shock, then finally to deathly pale. "Lawrence, what nonsense are you talking about?" Her voice trembled. Felix reacted first. He seemed to have heard the funniest joke of the century and burst into exaggerated laughter. "Ha ha ha. Lawrence Jian, did clearing plates drive you insane? 29 billion? Do you even know what that means? Even if we sold you, you couldn't gather a single fraction of it." He pointed at me, laughing so hard he nearly bent over. "And withdrawing assets? Who do you think you are? The chairman of the group? Have you read too many novels and started thinking you're some hidden tycoon?" People around us began laughing too. Engineer Jian must have been hit too hard. Maybe he lost his mind. 29 billion. He really dares say it. Poor man. Truly poor. Supervisor Wang's face became extremely ugly. She rushed in front of me and pointed at my nose. "Lawrence Jian. What madness are you causing? Hurry and apologize to President Fong and Miss Meng." I ignored her. My gaze remained on Felix. "Felix Fong, open your stock app and check the price of Zenith Manufacturing." Felix's laughter stopped abruptly. He looked at me suspiciously. "Zenith Manufacturing? Why would I check that?" Zenith Manufacturing was the achievement he was most proud of. It was also the root reason he had managed to push the subsidiary's performance upward within 1 month. It was a tech stock being wildly hyped by capital, rising all the way. Megan tried to persuade me. "Lawrence, stop making a scene. Come back with us. Whatever it is, we can talk at home." "Look." I said only one word. My calmness formed a strange contrast with the mockery around me. Annoyance flashed in Felix's eyes. Perhaps my gaze was too certain. In the end, he still took out his phone as if under some invisible pull. "Fine. I'll see what trick you think you can play." As he spoke, he opened his stock app. The moment he saw the screen, his expression froze. "Impossible, this is absolutely impossible." Felix stared at the phone as if trying to burn through it. His voice was full of disbelief and panic. Megan leaned over as well. With just one look, every trace of color drained from her face. On the screen, the red curve representing Zenith Manufacturing's stock price had suddenly reversed downward at an unimaginable, nearly vertical angle. At the top of the screen, in glaring green numbers, 10.00 limit down. Just minutes earlier, it had been sealed at limit up. From heaven to hell, it had taken less than 5 minutes. How could this happen? How did it suddenly hit limit down? Where is the main force? Where is the support fund? Felix muttered incoherently, frantically refreshing the screen with his finger. But that green line remained motionless, mocking his useless effort. The employees watching realized something was wrong and pulled out their own phones. Damn! Zenith Manufacturing hit limit down. Seriously? I saw it at limit up this morning. I just bought in. It's over. My money. The cafeteria instantly filled with wails. Why had I been sent down to the cafeteria? Because of this Zenith Manufacturing project. 1 month ago, Felix Fong arrived at the subsidiary as the young talent parachuted down from headquarters. His first project was to make the entire company bet on Zenith Manufacturing. At the project evaluation meeting, everyone praised President Fong for his vision. Only I, then chief engineer of the R&D department, opposed him. I clearly pointed out that Zenith Manufacturing's underlying technology architecture had fatal defects. Its beautiful financial report relied on several short-term orders that were about to expire. Once those orders ended, the capital chain would break, and collapse would be inevitable. I suggested that the company immediately stop investing and prepare risk hedges. That meeting had been awkward. Felix's face darkened on the spot. He did not directly refute my technical analysis. Instead, he shifted the topic and smiled. Engineer Jian is one of our seniors. Experienced, cautious, always considering everything very thoroughly. Perhaps a little too conservative. But times are changing. In business, sometimes we need courage. Only those who dare embrace risk can seize opportunity. With a few light words, he labeled me conservative and outdated. After the meeting, in front of everyone, he patted my shoulder. Engineer Jian, you've worked hard for half your life. It's time to rest. How about this? The company cafeteria is short on help lately. Go over there and lend a hand. It's easy work. You can treat it as early retirement. Everyone thought it was punishment and humiliation. Including my wife, Megan Meng. Only I knew I accepted it because I was waiting. Waiting for the right timing. Waiting for the moment when all truth would surface. And today was that moment. Felix's phone rang sharply like thunder. He fumbled to answer. An anxious voice came through the phone, loud enough that even I could hear from a distance. President Fong. Something's wrong. All our financing channels have been frozen. Felix's face was no longer pale. It was ash gray. What do you mean? Explain. Just now, several of our largest partner banks called at the same time. They said our credit rating was downgraded by Skyvault Risk Control to the lowest level. They demand immediate repayment of all matured and unmatured loans. If not, they'll initiate asset preservation procedures. Skyvault Risk Control? Felix repeated the name, the blood draining completely from his face. How is that possible? We have no direct business with Skyvault Risk Control. What right do they have to downgrade our rating? The person on the phone sounded close to tears. I don't know, President Fong. They only said the order came from the highest level. Now the liquidity on our books isn't even enough to pay interest. If Zenith Manufacturing stock doesn't stop falling, we'll be liquidated. Felix's hand shook like a leaf in autumn wind. He lifted his head violently and stared at me with bloodshot, frantic eyes. It was you. You did this, didn't you? I did not answer his question. I only looked at him calmly. Skyvault Risk Control. That name should not be unfamiliar to you. Of course Felix knew it. Skyvault Risk Control was a myth in global finance. It did not directly participate in investments. But it was the final insurance policy for top capital. Its risk assessment reports were known as the Capital Bible. One sentence from it could determine the life or death of a trillion-level enterprise. But very few people knew who founded Skyvault Risk Control. And very few people knew its name came from an old phrase, the sky as vault, law as rope. My name. Lawrence Jian. You, who exactly are you? Felix's voice was hoarse, forced from his throat. I did not look at him. Instead, I turned my gaze to Megan. She was still frozen where she stood, clearly unable to process one shock after another. Megan, we have been married for 10 years. I spoke slowly. In these 10 years, I never wronged you. You liked designer goods, so I bought you an entire dressing room of bags and clothes. You liked traveling, so whenever you wanted to go, I took you around the world. You liked romance, so I once booked an entire restaurant just to celebrate your birthday. My voice was light, as if telling a story unrelated to me. I always thought you married me because you loved me as a person. That is why I never told you my true identity or family background. I only wanted to give you a pure relationship, one not mixed with profit. I thought that even if I had nothing, you would still stay by my side. Now I see I was wrong. Megan swayed, her face white. Lawrence, I don't know what you're talking about, her eyes dodged, not daring to meet mine. You don't know? I laughed softly, the sound tinged with sorrow. You don't know, so when Felix appeared, you threw yourself into his arms so quickly? You don't know, so you accepted gifts he bought with company money and lived in the mansion he arranged for you? You don't know, so today you came here holding his arm just to watch me, the failure, make a fool of myself? Each word landed on Megan's heart like a heavy hammer. Her lips moved, but she could not say a word. Felix, however, seemed to grab his last straw. He pointed at me and shouted at Megan, Megan. Don't listen to him. He's insane. He's just a plate clearer pretending to be mysterious. He's jealous. He's trying to get revenge on us. Then he turned and roared at me, fierce on the outside and hollow within. Lawrence Jian, I don't care what dirty trick you used to make Zenith stock stumble temporarily. But you wait. When I find out, I'll make sure you rot in prison. Find out? I seem to hear something amusing. Good. I'll give you time. I took out my phone again. This time, I opened a video app. I turned the screen toward them. On it was a live monitoring feed from the top floor of group headquarters, the chairman's office, the symbol of highest power. A capable woman in a black business suit sat in the chairman's seat, issuing orders calmly to the team before her. She was Evelyn Chi. Sir, Phase 1 of the hibernation plan has been completed. All long accounts related to Zenith Manufacturing have been fully closed, and 10 times leveraged short positions have been established in reverse. The first round of harvesting is expected to complete within 3 hours. All bank credit channels connected to Felix Fang's subsidiary have been cut through Skyvault Risk Control. All associated companies under his name will have assets frozen and liquidated within 24 hours. The evidence chain involving Felix Fang's occupational embezzlement, misappropriation of funds, and insider trading has been organized. It will be anonymously sent to the Supreme Procuratorate and Securities Regulatory Commission in 10 minutes. Evelyn's voice echoed clearly through the phone speaker in the dead cafeteria. Every sentence was a punch landing on Felix's face. His body softened inch by inch as she spoke. Finally, with a thud, he collapsed onto the floor. The oily floor stained his expensive trousers. His eyes were empty. He kept muttering, "It's over, it's all over." The others in the cafeteria had long been shocked speechless by the reversal. They looked at me with awe and fear. As if I were not a plate clearer, but the king of hell holding power over life and death. Supervisor Wang hid in the corner, not daring to breathe, afraid I might notice her. I turned off the phone and walked step by step to Felix, who sat collapsed on the floor. I looked down at him the way he had looked down at me earlier. You thought you were parachuted into the subsidiary because of your outstanding ability? You thought the performance growth was your achievement? You thought seducing my wife proved your charm? I shook my head, my tone carrying a trace of pity. You were wrong. You were given that position only because you were Eric Jian Sr. in college. Eric Jian, the current public-facing president of the group. My son. Eric recommended you to me and said that although your ability was average, you were at least dependable. I gave you a chance to see whether you were worth shaping. I gave you the Zenith Manufacturing project to test your judgment and self-control. I even personally played the opponent at the project evaluation meeting to warn you and give you a chance to hit the brakes. Unfortunately, you were blinded by temporary victory and greed. Not only did you fail to brake, you slammed the accelerator down. And you even reached for something you should never have touched. My cold gaze swept across Megan, who was close to collapsing. Your biggest mistake was not incompetence. Nor greed. It was touching my family. Even though she no longer deserves to be my family. Felix broke completely. Like a madman, he hugged my leg and cried. Chairman. I was wrong. Chairman Jian, I was really wrong. I didn't know it was you. If I had known, I wouldn't have dared even with 100 lives. Please give me one more chance. I'll work like a dog for you. Megan Meng, no, that bitch. She seduced me. It was all her fault. He pointed back at Megan, his eyes full of venom. She said you were a useless coward. She said you were almost retired and asked me to help her get rid of you. I was deceived by her, Chairman. Megan was struck like lightning. She stared in disbelief at the man who just moments ago had been intimate with her and sworn he wanted to marry her. Felix, you're lying. Lying? Felix seemed to find an outlet for fear and rage. He glared at her viciously. Wasn't it you who told me Lawrence Jian was an old freeloader in the company? Wasn't it you who complained that he had no charm and was like a wooden block? Wasn't it you who used his money to buy me gifts and please me? You said once I helped you kick him out, the house and savings under his name would all belong to us. Felix's words tore away Megan's final cover like knives. So in their eyes, I was merely a bargaining chip they could manipulate and trade. My assets, a house and a few $100,000 in savings were all they had been coveting. How laughable. Megan's face shifted between blue and white. She wanted to refute him but found every sentence he said was true. So she could only turn to me, using tears and weakness for one final struggle. Lawrence, listen to me. I was just confused for a moment. She reached out, trying to tug the corner of my shirt the way she had countless times when she made mistakes and acted spoiled. I took one step back, avoiding her touch. My eyes were cold as ice. Explain? Fine. Explain it to my lawyer. As soon as I finished, two men in black suits entered the cafeteria. The leader was my private lawyer, Henry Gu. He walked to me and bowed slightly. Mr. Jian, everything you requested is ready. He opened his briefcase and took out two documents. One he handed to Felix, who was collapsed on the ground. Mr. Fong, this is your dismissal notice, as well as a list of evidence related to your suspected financial crimes. Our legal team will fully cooperate with the judicial investigation. The other was handed to Megan. Ms. Meng, this is the divorce agreement drafted by Mr. Jian. Henry pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses. His tone was flat but oppressive. According to Article 17, Clause 3 of the prenuptial agreement signed by you and Mr. Jian, if either party commits severe breach of trust during the marriage and causes major emotional and reputational damage to the other party, that party shall be deemed at fault and voluntarily waive all rights to division of marital property. Out of consideration for 10 years of marriage, Mr. Jian is willing to provide you an additional 100,000 yuan as humanitarian compensation. If you have no objection, please sign here. No, I disagree. I will never sign. Like a madwoman, Megan snatched the agreement and tore it to pieces. Lawrence Jian. You can't do this to me. I am your wife. 10 years. I stayed with you for 10 whole years. I gave you the best years of my youth. You want to send me away with 100,000 yuan? Dream on. Don't you have 29 billion? I want half. No, I want 15 billion. Otherwise, I will never agree to divorce. Looking at her greedy, twisted face, the last trace of affection in my heart vanished completely. Expressionless, Henry took out another identical agreement from his briefcase. Ms. Meng, tearing up the agreement changes nothing. Whether you sign or not, this divorce will happen. As for the property division you mentioned, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. Henry paused, then dropped a bomb. All assets under Mr. Jian's name, including the 29 billion you mentioned, are personal premarital assets and are managed by a family trust. As his wife, you could enjoy beneficiary rights to that trust only during the marriage, provided you did not trigger any fault clause. Now, you have automatically lost all rights. In other words, you will not receive a single cent. Megan froze completely. Family trust? Premarital assets? Terms she had only heard in television dramas now pressed down on her like mountains. She finally understood that from the beginning, she had fallen into the rules of a world she could never reach. She thought she had married a middle-class man with a little money. She never imagined he was a deep iceberg. What she saw was only the tip above the water. No, this isn't real, you're all lying to me, she murmured, her mind seemingly on the verge of collapse. At that moment, 2 uniformed police officers, guided by Supervisor Wang, quickly entered. They walked straight to Felix and showed their badges. Felix Fong, you are suspected of multiple financial crimes. Please come with us to assist the investigation. Felix did not even have the strength to resist. Like a lump of mud, he was pulled up from the floor. As he passed me, he used his final strength to howl, Lawrence Jian. You are ruthless. Even if I become a ghost, I won't let you go. I did not even bother looking at him. For a dying man, any words were meaningless. Felix was taken away. The cafeteria returned to a strange silence. Everyone lowered their heads, silent as cicadas in winter, not daring to look at me. Megan sat collapsed on the ground, eyes dull, as if her soul had been drained. I walked to her, crouched, and looked into her eyes. Megan, do you know why I returned to the company, disguised as an ordinary employee, and even accepted being sent down to the cafeteria? It was not to test you. It was for Eric. He is too young, too smooth, and too soft-hearted. He sat in the president's position, but he did not yet have the ability or temperament to hold it steady. I feared he would be killed by flattery and used by people with ulterior motives. So I returned. I wanted to stay beside him as an observer and see where he would take the company. To see what kind of people stood around him. Felix Fong was the first test I gave him. Unfortunately, he disappointed me. And you disappointed me even more. Megan's eyes moved. At last, a flicker of life returned. She looked at me as tears silently slid down her face. So from the beginning, you were watching the show? Watching me act like a clown in front of you, smug over my pathetic little victory? I neither admitted nor denied it. I stood and straightened my cheap t-shirt. The agreement is here. When you think it through, sign. If you refuse, we go through legal procedure. The result will be the same. Henry, this is yours. I turned to leave this suffocating place. Master Jian. No, Chairman Jian. Chairman Jian, please wait. Supervisor Wang's flattering, panicked voice came from behind. She ran over, holding a freshly brewed cup of tea that nearly spilled onto her own hand. Chairman Jian, I was blind before. I offended you many times. You are generous. Please don't lower yourself to my level. She bent and nodded, the fat on her face squeezing together. You suffered here these few days. Whatever you want to eat, I'll have the kitchen make it specially for you. I stopped and glanced back at her. Just that one look froze the smile on her face. Cold sweat soaked her back instantly. I said nothing. I walked straight out of the cafeteria. Sunlight shone in from outside, a little blinding. I narrowed my eyes and took a deep breath of fresh air. At last, the smell of grease from the cafeteria dispersed. A black Bentley Mulsanne stopped silently in front of me. Evelyn Chi got out from the driver's seat and opened the rear door. Sir, everything has been handled. I got into the car. The soft leather seat wrapped around me. Back to the old estate. Yes, sir. The car smoothly left the company. From the rearview mirror, I watched the commercial building I had built with my own hands grow farther away. And a greater storm had only just begun. The car was quiet except for the soft sound of air conditioning. Evelyn drove while reporting steadily. Sir, all evidence regarding Felix Fong has been delivered through encrypted channels. Within 1 hour, the Supreme Procuratorate is expected to directly file the case and open a Red Channel task force. He is finished, I said lightly, eyes closed against the seat. Yes. Evelyn answered without hesitation. The public funds he misappropriated, combined with illegal gains from insider trading, exceed 700 million. The amount is especially huge and the circumstances especially severe. Life imprisonment is the starting point. I said nothing. I felt no sympathy for Felix's fate. His mistake was treating my kindness as capital he could abuse. What about Megan? Lawyer Gu will handle it. If she refuses to sign, the court will enforce it in 3 days. All luxury goods, properties, and vehicles purchased with your money under her name will be recovered. Other than the 100,000 compensation, she will take nothing from you. Evelyn's tone was like stating an established fact. I opened my eyes and watched the street scenery fly backward outside the window. Have Megan and I really been together 10 years? It was as if I were asking her, and myself. Evelyn was silent for a moment. Sir, to be exact, 10 years, 3 months, and 12 days. Yes. That long. I laughed self-mockingly. So long I almost forgot why I married her in the first place. 10 years ago, because of a commercial fight, I became disheartened and temporarily withdrew. I used the name Lawrence Jian and became an ordinary engineer in a medium-sized company. There, I met Megan Meng, a new intern fresh out of university. She was young, beautiful, and full of energy. Like a ray of sunlight shining into my gray world. I thought I had found someone I could spend my life with. Now I realized perhaps what I had found was only her disguised hunger for my wallet. "Sir, you need not dwell on it," Evelyn said, as if seeing through my thoughts. "The human heart cannot withstand testing. Especially before enormous profit. You simply made the choice you thought was right." I nodded and said no more. The car entered a heavily guarded estate. This was my true home. The Jian family old estate. The car stopped before the main house. Butler Forbes stood at the entrance with a line of servants, respectfully waiting. "Master, you are home." Forbes opened the door and took my coat. He had served me for 50 years and was one of the people I trusted most. I answered and walked into the familiar house. Inside the hall, my son Eric Jian was pacing anxiously. Seeing me, he looked as if he had found his pillar and hurried over. "Dad, you're finally back." Something huge happened at the company. His face was full of panic and unease. I ignored him. I walked straight to the main seat, sat down, lifted the tea offered by a servant, and gently blew over it. "Why panic?" I spoke lightly. "The sky will not fall." Eric choked on my words, his face flushing. "Dad, it's already this bad, and you're still this calm?" Zenith Manufacturing stock collapsed. All partner banks are demanding immediate repayment. The entire company is panicking. If we don't find a solution, we'll go bankrupt. He fired off the company's troubles like a machine gun. I listened quietly. Only after he finished did I lift my eyes and look at him. "Done? Done. Then sit." My voice was not heavy, but it allowed no refusal. Eric opened his mouth. In the end, unwillingly, he sat on the sofa opposite me. "Eric, let me ask you." I set down my teacup. The cup touched the table with a clear sound. "Felix Fong was recommended by you, correct?" Eric froze, then nodded. "Yes, he was my senior in university." "I thought he was capable." I interrupted him. "Is the ability you speak of letting the company carry more than 5 billion in risk exposure within 1 month? Is it using his position to misappropriate public funds and fill his own pockets? Or is it climbing into your father's wife's bed?" The final sentence was light. But to Eric, it struck like thunder. He stood up from the sofa, his face full of shock and disbelief. "Dad! What did you say? How is that possible? How is it impossible?" I looked at him coldly. "That capable senior of yours should already be on his way to a detention center. And your stepmother, Megan Meng, will soon become my ex-wife." I threw a document in front of him. It was the record Evelyn had just organized of all interactions between Felix and Megan. Their chats, transfers, hotel records, even several obscene videos. Eric's hands trembled as he picked up the file. He read quickly, his face growing paler. When he reached the final high-definition photos, he could not hold back. He vomited. Servants hurried forward to clean. I waved them away. Soon, only father and son remained in the hall. After a long time, Eric lifted his head. His eyes were red, his voice hoarse. "Dad, I'm sorry. I failed to judge people and brought a wolf into the house. I hurt you." He knelt before me, tears covering his face. Looking at him, mixed feelings rose in my chest. This son, I had carried great expectations for him since childhood. I paved every road for him, letting him sit at a position many people could never reach in a lifetime while he was still young. But perhaps I had forgotten one thing. A towering tree cannot grow in a greenhouse. "Get up." I spoke. "The knees of Jian men carry gold. You kneel to heaven, earth, and parents. Not to mistakes." Eric wiped his tears and stood. But his head remained lowered. "Do you know now why the company had this problem?" He thought, then answered hesitantly, "Because of Felix?" I shook my head. "Felix is only a pawn. A trigger. The real problem is you. You trusted what you called connections and relationships too much. But you ignored the most fundamental thing." "What is that?" He looked up, confusion in his eyes. "Rules." I looked at him, word by word. "The rules of business," and the rules of human nature. You thought promoting Felix was loyalty to an old acquaintance and proof of your eye for talent. In his eyes, it was weakness. A shortcut he could exploit. You thought hiding company problems from me was to avoid making me worry. In my eyes, that was incompetence and cowardice. Eric, remember this. In this world, what allows you to stand firmly is not family background. Not wealth. It is your understanding and control of rules. When you can set rules for others, then you have truly grown up. Eric looked at me, half understanding. For the first time, the impatience in his eyes was gone. In its place was thought. I knew some truths required him to crash into walls and understand for himself. No matter how much I said, it would only be words on paper. Dad, what do we do now? His tone had lost its previous panic and gained calm. The zenith hole, the bank's demanding repayment, you don't need to manage that. I cut him off. Starting tomorrow, you won't go to the company. What? Eric froze again. Dad, are you firing me? Not firing. I shook my head. I'm changing your post. I turned to Evelyn. Evelyn, starting tomorrow, arrange for Eric to go to the African mining zone as a supervisor for 1 year. Yes, sir. Evelyn nodded. Africa? A mining zone? Supervisor? Eric's face collapsed instantly. Dad. You're not joking, right? That place is remote, hot, chaotic, and there are wars. What am I supposed to do there? Experience life. I said lightly. See what the starting point of the Jian family's wealth truly looked like. See how people who struggle on the line between life and death survive. You are not allowed to bring a bodyguard. You are not allowed to reveal your identity. Your living expenses will be the same as ordinary workers. 1 year later, if you can come back alive and hand me a qualified report on mining zone management and operations, then you will be qualified to return here and sit in this position. I pointed to the chair beneath me. And if I can't? Eric gritted his teeth. Then stay in Africa forever. My tone held not one trace of emotion. Eric's expression changed again and again. He knew I was not joking. He looked at me. There was unwillingness in his eyes. Anger. But finally, all of it became a trace of determination. Fine. I'll go. He nodded heavily. But Dad, what about the company? The company? I stood and walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window, looking over the estate outside. Starting tomorrow, I, Lawrence Jian, will return as chairman and president of the Jian Group. I want everyone to know. I am back. The next day, one explosive announcement shook the entire business world. Lawrence Jian, founder of Jian Group and the business legend who had withdrawn for 10 years, announced his return. At the same time, Jian Group announced that former President Eric Jian would take a 1-year leave for personal reasons. His duties would be assumed by the newly appointed chairman, Lawrence Jian. The announcement also disclosed that Felix Fang, executive of a subsidiary, was under judicial investigation for suspected serious economic crimes. The group would fully cooperate and launch an internal self-inspection. This combination of strikes caught the market off guard. Jian Group's stock briefly fell in panic after opening. But soon, under the support of enormous mysterious funds, it rose rapidly and locked firmly at limit up. Everyone understood. The man who once dominated the business world had returned. And his first act was to clean house and rebuild order. I sat in the chairman's office I had not occupied for years, looking at the traffic outside the window. There was not a ripple in my heart. To me, this was merely returning to where I should have been. Evelyn placed a cup of hot tea beside my hand. Sir, everything is proceeding according to your plan. The market reaction is very positive. Major investment banks have raised our ratings. I nodded. Have the fence sitters been cleaned out? Cleanly. A cold curve appeared at the corner of Evelyn's mouth. After you announced your return, those who had previously cheered for Felix and kicked you while you were down immediately submitted resignations. Others tried to beg through connections. According to your instructions, I placed them on the industry blacklist. From now on, they will have no place in the financial circle. Good. I approved. Against enemies, we cannot show mercy. Oh, one more thing. How should we handle Supervisor Wang from the cafeteria? Evelyn asked. I thought for a moment. A clown. No need to waste too much time on her. But since she likes being a leader so much, let her lead enough. I understand. Evelyn understood instantly. A few days later, news spread inside the company. Former cafeteria supervisor Wang, due to outstanding management ability, had been transferred to the newly established hygiene inspection department as its only employee. Her daily job was inspecting restroom sanitation on every floor of the company. It was said that the day she received the transfer order, she fainted from crying in the office. After handling internal matters, my life seemed to return to order. Every day, I strategized in business, wrestling with the world's top capital predators. In my free time, I returned to the old estate, drank tea, practiced calligraphy, and enjoyed moments of quiet. But the quiet was soon broken. One day, I was copying Wang Shiji's preface to the Orchid Pavilion in the study when butler Forbes entered. "Master, there is a woman outside surnamed Meng. She says she is your ex-wife, and wants to see you." His tone carried faint contempt. The brush in my hand paused. A drop of ink fell onto the rice paper, ruining the page. "What is she here for?" I frowned slightly. Since that day in the cafeteria, I thought Megan and I had nothing left between us. She eventually signed the divorce agreement. Faced with Lawyer Gu's powerful legal team and mountains of evidence, she had no choice. She took the 100,000 yuan and a few old pieces of clothing I had bought her, then left the villa where she had lived for 10 years. I thought she would disappear from my world. "She says she has something very important to discuss with you face to face," Forbes answered. "She says if you refuse to see her, you will regret it." Regret? I smiled. I had lived half a lifetime and still did not know how to write the word regret. "Let her in." I put down the brush. "I want to see how she can make me regret." A few minutes later, Megan was brought into my study. After only half a month, she looked like a different person. She had once been bright and glamorous, wrapped in designer brands like a delicate porcelain doll. Now, her face was haggard. Her eyes were sunken. She wore a faded t-shirt and cheap jeans. She looked exactly like me on the day I had cleared plates in the cafeteria. Fortune truly turns. When she saw me, complex emotions flashed in her eyes. Resentment, unwillingness, and a trace of pleading. "Lawrence Jian, we need to talk." Her voice was hoarse and dry. "What else is there to talk about between us?" I sat in the grand chair, lifted my teacup, and did not look at her. "There is." She took a deep breath, as if making up her mind. From the cloth bag she carried, she took out a document and slapped it onto my desk. "Look at this. Then we'll talk." I glanced at it. It was a hospital report. At the top of the report were 3 words, "Pregnancy report." I picked it up and read carefully. It clearly stated that Megan Meng was 6 weeks pregnant. The date was 3 days earlier. My heart sank. Whose child is it? I lifted my head, my gaze like a knife fixed on her eyes. Megan was frightened back by my gaze, but soon lifted her chest. "What do you think?" she asked back, a self-mocking smile on her lips. "How long have we been divorced?" 6 weeks ago, we were still husband and wife. "Tell me, whose child could it be?" My mind began running quickly. 6 weeks ago, a month and a half earlier. At that time, I had not yet been sent down to the cafeteria. Our relationship had not fully collapsed. Though we were already distant, marital intimacy still occasionally happened. So theoretically, the child could be mine. But it could also be Felix's. "What do you want?" I threw the report back onto the desk, my tone cold. "Simple." Megan seemed very satisfied with my reaction. She pulled out the chair opposite me and sat down on her own. "This child is your flesh and blood. The eldest grandson of the Jian family. You can't let him be born as an illegitimate child, can you? So we remarry." She said each word clearly, eyes filled with certainty. "I will give birth to this child openly. I will make him the rightful heir of the Jian Group. As the child's mother, I demand 30% of Jian Group shares as protection for us. Lawrence Jian, don't think I don't know. What you value most is the Jian family bloodline. With such a large family business, someone has to inherit it. Eric has been sent to Africa by you and his life is uncertain. Now this child is your only hope." She looked at me, a victorious smile on her face. "You have no choice." Looking at her face twisted by greed, I suddenly laughed. I laughed loudly, almost until tears came out. Megan felt unsettled. "What are you laughing at?" I stopped and shook my head. Megan Meng, Megan Meng. I truly underestimated you. I thought you were only stupid." I did not realize you were this naive. You think you can threaten me with a pregnancy report of uncertain truth? You think the Jian bloodline is so easily confused? Megan's face changed instantly. What do you mean? Very simple. I pressed a button on the desk. The study door opened. A man in a white coat and gold-rimmed glasses, looking about 50, walked in. Allow me to introduce him. I pointed to the man. This is Dr. Lee, a Harvard Medical School postdoctoral fellow specializing in genetics and fertility. He has also been the Jian family's private doctor for decades. Dr. Lee walked to Megan and nodded politely. Hello, Ms. Meng. Megan looked at him warily. What do you want? Nothing much. I leaned back in my chair, relaxed. I simply want Dr. Lee to perform a paternity test on the child in your womb. Of course, if you refuse to cooperate, that is fine too. I changed direction. Dr. Lee, please explain the Jian family's fertility rules to Ms. Meng. Dr. Lee pushed his glasses and spoke in a tone without emotion. Yes, sir. Ms. Meng, according to Chapter 3, Article 72 of the Jian Family Code, any newborn with blood relation to a core Jian family member must have a genetic sample personally collected by me within 24 hours of birth. Only after comparison with Mr. Jian's genetic database confirms paternity may the child enter the family registry and enjoy inheritance rights. And Mr. Jian's genetic database was established 20 years ago. As for Mr. Jian himself, Dr. Lee paused, then spoke a sentence that threw Megan into ice. 10 years ago, after divorcing his first wife, Mr. Jian underwent a permanent vasectomy. From a biological perspective, Mr. Jian can no longer naturally impregnate any woman. What? Megan's eyes widened like bells. She stared at me in disbelief, her lips trembling, unable to form a word. No, impossible, that's absolutely impossible, she murmured like a madwoman. We clearly, I sneered. We clearly had sex, so why would I have a vasectomy? Is that what you want to ask? Megan Meng, you didn't truly think I was still interested in your body, did you? You didn't truly think I enjoyed every time I was with you, did you? Let me tell you. That was merely the most basic duty I performed as a husband. As for the child in your womb, I believe you know better than anyone whose seed it is. Now take your bastard and get out of my house. Megan collapsed to the ground as if all strength had been drained from her. The arrogance and triumph from moments earlier disappeared completely. Only endless despair and gray defeat remained. At last, she understood. From beginning to end, she was a joke. A self-righteous, pitiful joke. She thought she had caught a trump card. But that card had been fake from the start. Forbes called 2 guards, who dragged the soulless Megan out of my study. From beginning to end, I did not look at her again. The study returned to silence. Dr. Lee packed his things and took his leave. Sir, if there is nothing else, I will return first. I nodded. Dr. Lee, thank you. My duty. After he left, the vast study held only me. I looked at the ruined sheet of Orchid Pavilion preface on the desk and felt no pleasure. Only deep exhaustion. What exactly was I doing all this for? For boundless wealth? For supreme power? I thought I had long seen through human nature. Yet again and again, the ugliness of the human heart disgusted me to the bone. I picked up the phone and called Evelyn. Sir. Check Megan's recent call records and bank transactions. Yes, sir. Evelyn was efficient. 10 minutes later, a detailed report arrived in my email. I opened it and scanned quickly. As expected. In Megan's recent call records, one number appeared very frequently. And the owner of that number was someone unexpected, yet reasonable. My first wife. Eric Jian's biological mother. Sylvia Su. Sylvia Su. I had not mentioned that name for many years. She was the first woman I formally married. And the only woman I had ever truly loved in my life. We were university classmates. From school uniforms to wedding clothes, we had once been the perfect couple everyone envied. Together, we founded the predecessor of Jian Group, a small tech company. I handled technology and the market outside. She managed finance and operations inside. We worked together perfectly and built the company step by step. Later, we had Eric. I thought our life would continue happily like that forever. Until I discovered that behind my back, she was transferring company assets. And entangled with one of my business rivals. That was the darkest period of my life. I chose to cut the knot quickly. I gave her a large sum of money, forced her to leave with nothing else, and made her sign an agreement never to see Eric again. From then on, she vanished completely from my world. I had not expected that after 20 years, she would reappear in my life like this. And she was involved with Megan. Looking at the 5 million yuan overseas transfer into Megan's bank account, I fell into thought. So Megan's pregnancy and attempt to threaten me had been a play directed by Sylvia from beginning to end. What did she want? Did she think an unknown bastard could shake the foundation of the Jian family? Or did she have some other purpose? My fingers tapped unconsciously on the desk. After a long time, I picked up the phone. Evelyn, arrange a meeting with Sylvia Sue. She decides the time and place. Yes, sir. I wanted to see what this woman I had once loved had become. And I wanted to know why she had gone through so much trouble to set up this game. Sylvia chose a tea house on the outskirts of the city. Remote and quiet. It was where we had our first date back then. I drove there alone. No driver. No bodyguards. The matter between us had to be resolved by us in the end. When I arrived, Sylvia was already there. She chose a seat by the window, her back facing me, quietly making tea. Her back was just as I remembered. Slender. Straight. Time seemed not to have left too many marks on her. I walked to the opposite side and sat. She seemed not to see me. She continued focusing on the movements of her hands. Rinsing tea. Warming cups. Pouring. Every movement was smooth and pleasing, full of rhythm. I knew this was a habit she had developed over the years. No matter how stormy her heart, her surface would always remain elegant and calm. She pushed the first cup of tea toward me. The fragrance rose. It was familiar to Hong Pao. Taste it. She finally spoke, her voice calm and impossible to read. New tea this year. Not bad. I lifted the cup and drank it in one swallow. The tea is good. I set down the cup and looked at her. Unfortunately, the one brewing it is not calm. Sylvia's movement paused. She raised her head and finally looked me in the eye. After 20 years, faint wrinkles had appeared at the corners of her eyes. But her eyes were still as bright and sharp as I remembered. Lawrence Jian, you are still the same. She said lightly. Always so self-righteous. Always believing you can control everything. Isn't that true? I asked back. At least the game you set up was easily seen through by me. That stupid woman Megan is probably hiding in some corner now, crying and regretting listening to your nonsense. Sylvia showed no surprise. I never expected her to succeed. She spoke calmly. She was merely a pawn I threw out to test you. Oh? I became interested. Then did your test produce results? It did. Sylvia nodded. Her gaze turned somewhat complicated. I discovered you are even more heartless than I imagined. Even when facing a woman who might be carrying your child, you showed no pity or hesitation. Lawrence Jian, is your heart made of stone? Whether my heart is made of stone, you knew 20 years ago. I sneered. Sylvia Sue, put away your fake performance. There is no need for circles between us. Say it. What do you want? You went through so much trouble returning from abroad, finding Megan, and setting up this farce. Surely it was not just to drink tea and reminisce with me. Sylvia fell silent. She looked out the window at the phoenix tree we had planted together back then. Now it had grown tall and thick. After a long time, she sighed quietly. Lawrence Jian, I want Eric back. What? I thought I heard wrong. Say that again. I said I want custody of Eric back. Sylvia turned to me, her gaze burning. He is my son. I carried him for 10 months and gave birth to him. What right did you have to take away my right to see him? What right? I laughed as if hearing the biggest joke in the world. Sylvia Sue, have you forgotten? You were the one who signed that agreement. You were the one who gave up custody of Eric for money. What right do you have to discuss this with me now? Yes, I signed it. Pain flashed in Sylvia's eyes. But that was not my true will. You forced me. If I refused, you would have made me leave with nothing. You would have used every connection to leave me nowhere to go. I was a woman with a child. How was I supposed to survive? So you chose to betray me, transfer company assets, and collude with my opponent? My voice rose suddenly. This was a thorn buried in my heart for 20 years. Every time I thought of it, it hurt faintly. I did not. Sylvia stood up in agitation. I never betrayed you. And I never transferred company assets. That money was what I deserved. It was marital property. I was only taking back my share. As for what you call entanglement with your rival, Zhao, that is nonsense. I was only asking him for advice about overseas asset allocation. We were innocent. Innocent? I sneered. A man and woman alone late at night in a hotel room, discussing asset allocation? Sylvia, do you take me for a 3-year-old child? You. Sylvia trembled with rage, her face pale. Lawrence Jian, you are simply unreasonable. I'm telling you, what happened back then was not what you think at all. Then what was it? I stared at her. Say it. Sylvia looked at me with disappointment and sorrow. Forget it. She shook her head and sat back down. At this point, saying those things has no meaning. Lawrence, I did not come today to fight. Nor to dig up old accounts. I only want to see Eric. He has grown up. He has the right to know he still has a biological mother. He also has the right to choose the life he wants. You cannot treat him as your attachment forever, controlling and arranging him. Controlling him? Arranging him? I was almost angered into laughter. Sylvia, have you lived abroad so long your brain broke? I gave him the best education and the best life. I let him sit in the group president's seat at a young age. In your eyes, that is control? Then what if I tell you your precious son is now serving as a supervisor in some miserable African mining zone? What? Sylvia's expression changed instantly. You sent him to Africa? Why? Because he made mistakes and needs punishment. I spoke lightly. And because I want him to know that everything he has now is not natural. Lawrence Jian. You're insane. Sylvia could no longer remain calm. She rushed forward and grabbed my collar. That is Africa. One of the most dangerous and chaotic places in the world. Eric has been protected since childhood. How could you send him there? He is your biological son. How can you be so cruel? Her nails dug deeply into my skin. But I felt no pain. I only looked quietly at her, at the face twisted by worry for our son. At that moment, I suddenly found it amusing. A mother who had not cared for her son for 20 years now stood here accusing me, the father who had given everything to him, of cruelty. I am cruel? I pushed her away. Sylvia Sue, what right do you have to say that? Who abandoned him for money back then? Over these years, did you ever care for him even once? Do you know what he likes? What he hates? Do you know who stayed beside him every time he got sick? You know nothing. You only know he is your son. A bargaining chip you can use to threaten me and trade for benefits. I tell you, stop dreaming. Eric is my son. He will always be my son. If you want to see him, fine. When he returns from Africa, I will ask his opinion. If he wants to see you, I will not stop him. But if he does not, I paused, then said each word clearly, then you will never step through the Jian family gates again. My meeting with Sylvia ended unhappily. I did not know how she left. I only knew that when I returned home, I felt emptied. Sylvia and I had finally reached this point. Love. Hatred. Torturing each other. Perhaps from the moment we divorced, we were destined to be enemies for life. Over the next few days, my mood remained irritable. As a result, everyone in the Jian group lived on edge. Everyone could see the big boss was in a terrible mood. Evelyn seemed to notice my abnormal state as well. One day, she knocked and entered my office. Sir, this is the latest report from Africa on young Master Jian. She placed a file on my desk. I was surprised. I had not asked her to monitor Eric. Since I sent him there, I intended for him to fend for himself. But somehow, I still opened the report. Inside were several photos. In the photos, Eric had become dark and thin. He wore worn work clothes and sat with a group of black miners, eating hard bread. The arrogance and impatience on his face were gone. In their place was a firmness and steadiness I had never seen before. One photo showed him carrying an injured miner on his back along a rugged mountain path. His eyes were focused and determined. The report said that after young Master Jian arrived at the mining zone, he did not shrink back from the harsh environment. He quickly connected with the local workers, learned their language, and understood their culture. Using what he had studied, he improved mining techniques, raised productivity, and improved working conditions. He even paid out of his own pocket to build a simple school in the mining area, hiring teachers to teach local children to read and write. Now the entire mining zone respected him and affectionately called him the Eastern Eagle. Looking at the sun in the photos, both familiar and unfamiliar, my eyes actually grew moist. Perhaps sending him to Africa had been right. An eagle can only learn to fly in open skies. Sir. Evelyn's voice pulled me back. There is new movement on Ms. Sylvia Sue's side. What happened? I gathered my emotions. She has used all of her connections and seems to be investigating the divorce matter from 20 years ago. Evelyn answered. And she seems to have found something. Oh? My brow lifted. What could she possibly find? I believed what happened 20 years ago had been flawless. All witnesses and evidence pointed toward Sylvia's affair and betrayal. Trying to overturn it was fantasy. She found the private investigator who gave you the evidence back then. Evelyn's next sentence made my heart jerk. That investigator died in an accident a few days ago. Accident? Yes. Police reported it as drunk driving and falling off a cliff. Evelyn's tone was calm. But from that calm, I heard something abnormal. Too coincidental, I murmured. Sylvia had just found him, and then he died. There were not that many coincidences in the world. Sir, should I send people to investigate? Evelyn asked. I shook my head. No, if someone truly is operating behind this, they will strike again. What we need to do now is wait and watch. Also, strengthen protection around Sylvia. I do not want her to become the next accident. Though I hated her, she was Eric's mother. Before the truth from back then was clear, I could not let anything happen to her. Yes, sir. Evelyn nodded. One more thing. She seemed to remember something. Megan had an abortion at a private clinic a few days ago. The doctor who performed it was arranged by me. After the surgery, we collected fetal tissue and performed genetic testing. The result shows the child was Felix Fong's. I nodded, not surprised. Where is she? She disappeared after the surgery. Evelyn answered. Our people lost her. Disappeared? A bad feeling suddenly rose in my heart. A woman who had just lost a child and had no money, where could she go? Investigate immediately. I ordered. Alive, I want to see her. Dead, I want to see the body. But my order came too late. 3 days later, police found Megan's body in an abandoned, unfinished building. There were multiple signs of beating on her body. Cause of death, excessive blood loss. Scattered around her were empty syringes that had been used. Forensic results showed that before death, she had been injected with a large amount of drugs. Everything looked like gang revenge. But I knew it was not that simple. Megan, an ordinary gold digger, how could she provoke drug dealers? The only explanation was that someone wanted her mouth closed forever. And the only secret she knew was that Sylvia had instructed her to threaten me. Could it be Sylvia? I did not dare think further. If it truly was her, then this woman was terrifying. To achieve her goal, she would stop at nothing. Even murder. While I was restless, Evelyn brought worse news. Sir, Miss Sylvia Sue is missing. What? I stood abruptly. When? This morning. Evelyn's face was serious too. The people protecting her said she went out for morning exercise as usual, then never returned. We checked every camera. She was forced into an unlicensed black van. The vehicle went west and finally disappeared on the highway out of the city. Kidnapping. The word flashed through my mind. Who? Were they after me? After Sylvia? Or after the secret from 20 years ago? Sir, the other side called soon after. Evelyn handed me a recorder. I pressed play. A processed, hoarse voice sounded. Lawrence Jian, your old lover is in my hands. If you want her alive, bring the agreement between you and the Zhao family from 20 years ago. Remember. Come alone. Otherwise, prepare to collect her body. The Zhao family. The agreement. When those two words entered my ears together, my mind went blank for an instant. A memory sealed for 20 years broke open like a flood. 20 years ago, Jian Group was still a small to medium company just beginning to show promise. The business overlord at the time was the Zhao family. The head of the Zhao family, Nathan Zhao, was ruthless and ambitious. He wanted our technology and potential, so he tried to acquire us. Of course I refused. So he used every method to suppress and exclude us. That period was the hardest time in Jian Group's history. Our capital chain broke. Core technical staff were poached. Market share was devoured. I almost could not hold on. Just when I was desperate, Sylvia came to me. She told me she had a way to save the company. She said Nathan Zhao's son, Ryan Zhao, the man I later suspected had an affair with her, had been pursuing her. She could use that relationship to approach Nathan, obtain evidence of his suppression, and even turn him, forcing him to cooperate with us. I was stunned by her insane idea. Of course I refused. I could not let my own wife take that kind of risk. But Sylvia's personality had always been one of decision. Behind my back, she secretly began implementing her plan. She began frequently contacting Ryan Zhao. She began demanding property division and divorce. She even created the illusion that she had betrayed me and transferred company assets. Everything she did was to numb the Zhao family and make them lower their guard. But I, blinded by jealousy and rage, lost my reason. I thought she had truly betrayed me. I hired a private investigator to follow and investigate her. But that investigator had already been bought by the Zhao family. Every piece of evidence he gave me was carefully designed. Trap after trap. Including the photo of Sylvia and Ryan Zhao inside a hotel room. In fact, it had only been a business party with many people present. But I believed it. With my own hands, I pushed the woman I loved most into the abyss. I still remembered the day we divorced. She looked at me, her eyes full of despair. She said, "Lawrence Jian, one day, you will regret this." Yes. I regretted it. I regretted it so deeply my insides hurt. So she had never betrayed me. Everything she did was for me. For our company. She gambled her reputation and lifelong happiness to win me a bargaining chip against the Zhao family. That so-called agreement was actually a humiliating treaty Sylvia forced the Zhao family to sign through her intelligence and courage. The Zhao family would stop suppressing us and open all their market channels to us. In exchange, Jian Group would give the Zhao family 30% of profits for the next 10 years. And I had to divorce Sylvia so she could marry Ryan Zhao. Of course I did not agree. I tore up the agreement and drove the Zhao family completely out of our world. I thought that matter had passed. I never expected the Zhao family to return after 20 years in this form. The kidnappers set the exchange location at an abandoned dock outside the city. Following their demand, I did not call the police. I brought the agreement that had long been locked in the deepest part of my safe and drove there alone. The night was black as ink. Sea wind cut across my face like knives. I got out and saw several figures standing at the far end of the dock. Sylvia was tied to a pillar, cloth stuffed in her mouth. Her hair was messy. Her face was pale. But her eyes remained stubborn. Seeing me, worry flashed through them. The leader was a man about my age. A long scar crossed his face from brow bone to mouth, making him look terrifying. "Lawrence Jian, long time no see." His voice was hoarse, like two sheets of sandpaper rubbing together. I looked at him and found him faintly familiar. "You are Ryan Zhao?" I asked tentatively. "Ha ha ha." He burst into crazed laughter. "That's right. It's me. Thanks to you, the Zhao family was destroyed. My father was forced by you to jump off a building. And I had to live like a dog, hiding for 20 years. His eyes were full of venom and hatred. "Today, I finally returned. I will make you pay blood for blood. Did you bring the agreement?" He reached out. "Give it to me. Release her first, and I'll give it to you." I pointed at Sylvia. "Release her?" Ryan sneered. "Lawrence Jian, do you still not understand the situation? You have no right to negotiate with me. Give me the agreement first. Otherwise, I'll kill her first, then kill you." He pulled a dagger from his waist and pressed it against Sylvia's neck. The sharp blade instantly cut her delicate skin, drawing a thin line of blood. "No!" I shouted. "I'll give it to you." I threw the document over. Ryan caught it and flipped through several pages. After confirming it, a triumphant smile appeared. "Good. Lawrence Jian, you are sensible after all. With this agreement, I can take back everything that belongs to the Zhao family. Now, you can die." He raised the dagger and moved to stab me. At that critical moment, Sylvia suddenly used all her strength to break free of her restraints and rammed into Ryan. Caught off guard, Ryan stumbled. The dagger flew from his hand. "Run!" Sylvia shouted at me until her voice tore. "Don't worry about me. Run!" How could I run? How could I abandon her again? I rushed forward, kicked away Ryan as he reacted, and pulled Sylvia tightly behind me. "If you want to touch her, step over my corpse first." Ryan fell to the ground. Humiliated and enraged, he roared, Get them. Kill them. Several of his men approached with steel pipes and machetes. I protected Sylvia more tightly. Don't be afraid. I whispered beside her ear. I'm here. Sylvia looked at me, tears shimmering in her eyes. Lawrence, I'm sorry. I interrupted her. The one who should apologize is me. When this is over, I will properly ask your forgiveness. I faced the men rushing toward us, ready for the final fight. Just then, piercing police sirens approached from afar, cutting through the night. Dozens of police cars surrounded the entire dock. Over 100 fully armed special police officers got out. Freeze! Police! Drop your weapons! Ryan and his men were stunned. They never expected the police to arrive so quickly. How could this be? Ryan murmured. You called the police? He stared at me in disbelief. I smiled and said nothing. How could I truly come alone and take such a risk? Before leaving, I had already informed Evelyn. With her ability, mobilizing this level of force took only minutes. As for the agreement, of course it was fake. The real one had been burned to ashes by me 20 years ago. Ryan was quickly subdued by the police. He looked at me with unwilling hatred. Lawrence Jien. You won again. But don't be too proud. Even if I die, I'll drag someone down with me. Suddenly, he pulled out a remote control from his clothes and pressed it. Boom! A massive explosion shook the entire dock. Instinctively, I pressed Sylvia beneath my body. When I opened my eyes again, I saw the container above us swaying violently. Ryan had planted explosives at the dock before coming. He wanted to die with us. Run! I pulled Sylvia up and tried to escape to safety. But it was too late. A huge container fell toward us with a screaming gust of wind. Using my last strength, I shoved Sylvia away. And I was swallowed completely by the enormous shadow. When I woke again, I was lying in a hospital bed. Sunlight passed through the window and fell warmly on my face. Sylvia slept beside my bed. There were still tear marks at the corners of her eyes. I reached out, wanting to wipe them away. The movement woke her. You're awake. She looked at me and cried with joy. The doctor said if you woke any later, you might never wake up again. I smiled faintly. My whole body felt as if it had fallen apart. I have a hard life. The king of hell doesn't want me. By the way, where is Eric? I asked. He came back. Sylvia answered. After your accident, I notified him. He rushed back from Africa overnight. He is handling the company now. And he is doing better than you. Is that so? I smiled with relief. That boy has finally grown up. We looked at each other and smiled. It felt as if we had returned to the most beautiful years 20 years ago. All misunderstandings. All grudges. At that moment, everything seemed to disappear like smoke. Perhaps life is like this. Only through loss can one gain. I lost 10 years of time. But I found the two most important people in my life again. I think this was the most worthwhile transaction I ever made. That's all for today's story. Remember to subscribe and leave a comment.